Well, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. This is item number FCR 2017-18 number 13. This is to ask the Finance Committee to endorse a PWSC proposal discussed on the 20th of April, that is PWSC 2016-17 number 44, to recommend to increase the approved project estimate of 56 TR by $286.2 million from $927 million to $1,213.2 million in money of the day prices. The PWSC had discussed this item on the 5th of April, 12th, and also the 20th of April. Well, the administration has also given 5 information paper, so you may download and view the information I've just outlined on the website. I declare that I am INED of the East Asia Bank. Ms. Tanya Chan. The engineer, Mr. Wong, is not here, is that right? You mean from the MTRCL? Yes, I think he's on his way. Perhaps you can ask your question to see if we can answer you. Good, I've been liaising with him in relation to South Horizon. There are some changes that are rather technical. In previous meetings, I have raised the issue as in relation to wear and tear of facilities at South Horizons in view of the management company, and also some other grounds sites have been taken for excavation. And there are questions about railway facilities and non-railway facilities, because for those non-railway facilities, after the warranty period, they will belong to South Horizons. Previously, without the consent of the management company nor notification of the letter, that excavation took place in some of their facilities. So I would like to know about progress. I wonder whether answers can be given without Mr. Wong being here. This is for supplementary funding approval. It involves a certain main infrastructure related to the company, and there is no direct relations with the railway service. Sorry for the interruption. I know that you're very sincere in giving me an answer. What has happened before, there may be some litigations and they may come to ask for supplementary funding approval. There may be no direct relations, but I hope this will be the last time that we see you in relation to this issue. Well, I don't want to see that in future there are some litigations and there is insufficient funds and you have to come back to us for more money. Well, this I can answer you. This is about a part of a government project. We have made the calculations. We come to apply for this amount of money. We believe that it will be sufficient without having to come back. The railway project is funded by MTR funds. There is no need for them to come to ask for funding approval in relation to the railway project. Ms. Chan mentioned about a certain area, say the South Horizons station, is under the railway project. It's not part of the proposal we are going to discuss here. Perhaps you can defer to the MTRCL to follow up on a district issue. There are representatives from the MTRCL, right? We will give supplementary information in reply to Ms. Chan's question about South Horizons. Mr. Nathan Law, 5 minutes. What about these SIL, South Island Lines East? In September 2016, the project was completed. Previously, there were questions why payment was not instantly made, and the government said that they have to wait for the expiry of the warranty period. This is to ensure that there are no problems within the guarantee period before funds released. So during this year, there is no change as a result of changes in wages or raw material. So there is no inflation. How come the price level is not frozen at that of in 2016? Why is there a need to adjust it? Let me defer to the Highways Department. Yes, majority of the project has been completed. However, some sums have not been released to the contractor. So we have to work out the amount to be paid out, taking into account when they will be paid. We will work out an estimate at the money of the day prices. This is to reflect that we use September 2010 money of the day prices in the original estimate. We just change it to the September 2010 money of the day prices so that the items can be compared at the same price level. The only difference is allocation for the price adjustment. My question was, since nothing is done, so it will not be affected by inflation. I know that it's government policy. I just want to ask about the rationale behind. To put it bluntly, this is a waste of public money. You pay money that is not actually expenditure incurred. So what is the logic, and what is the justification? I want to say that we have not spent more than we did. But the expenditure is calculated on the money of the day prices of that time. We convert it to money of the day in September 2010. We have always been using money of the day prices when it comes to payment. So we need to work out the price level of September 2010. So the prices at the time of completion and also money of the day prices, why do you have to choose the former? We have to work out the amount to be paid, and we have to work out the amount in real terms, because when the FC takes into account the cost, it will be money of the day prices. So there's a difference of time it's pay. The actual value of the sum is calculated based on money of the day prices. Sorry, I still haven't got the answer yet. I see that there is a footbridge linking Wong Chuk Hang at a price of $90 million. Can you tell me why it's so pricey? There is an increase of $20 million. Is it a cost overrun? Can you explain why it's so expensive? Who is to take this question? I'll defer to the MTRCL. For the Wong Chuk Hang footbridge is rather long. It goes over Wong Chuk Hang Road, Hung Yip Road, and Lam Long Shan Road. The total length is mentioned in the PWSC paper is about 130 meters. and we have encountered unforeseen difficulties in the underground utilities, so we have incurred additional cost. Anyone else who would like to ask questions? Mr. Eddie G, 5 minutes.
唔該主席，咁記得喺沙中線嗰個。
I remember that when it comes to the advanced work of the Shatin Central Line project cost overrun, we have been arguing over a point. It's a comparison between an apple and an orange. I wonder whether, Chairman, you remember. Well, in the ancillary project and the application for supplementary funds, they also use money of the day prices to reflect the cost. For Shatin Central Line, we asked the MTRCL. They said that they don't entirely use this approach to approve projects. Sometimes they use target prices, sometimes they use fixed price. So when it comes to the supplementary funding approval of the SIL, is it the same? That means you use the price adjustment approach. But when it comes to the actual expenditure, it's a different approach. Who is to take the question? I'll defer to the MTRCL. Thank you. In the project 56TR, major infrastructure is based on target prices, and it's on an accountable basis. And prices are calculated of cost at that time, so it has already taken into account price adjustment.
The same situation or same question is arising. If you use target price, then at the beginning, when they submitted it to the FC, did they use this description to explain to us that the contract was based on this target price? If not, why not? MTRCL or the government, Highways Department. Let me explain. The price adjustment reserve. So when we draft a budget, we look at past similar projects for reference, but past projects and future projects, there's a time difference, and we foresee that in future projects, the prices there will be difference in price with our reference projects. So to offset the price change, usually it's a price increase. So in the budget, we will set some funds aside. We call it price adjustment reserve. So a provision for price adjustment. So this is the money that we'll have to give the contractors. So if wages go up, material costs go up, it's set aside for those scenarios, and no matter which tender model we use, we still have to make that arrangement. So the tenderer, when they submit the tender, they also need to consider during the construction period. The same question has occurred. We have a fixed price, target price, and a floating price. We have these three types of contracts. Are you saying there's no difference? So if there are no difference in the calculations, when we do the budget, we have the same forecast. I understand when you draft the budget, you will use the floating price, and then you do the provision for price adjustments. But when you go over budget, you come back for extra funding, and you would report to us. Shouldn't you tell us you were using a target price, and how did you calculate the figures? Shouldn't you report to us? Why do you have to use the floating price description to explain it to us. So this is why we can't compare apples and oranges. We don't understand how your money is spent. So on this occasion, we have to come back to FC for extra funding. The money is still money of the day. That means we have already paid the contractor. That's the money we're seeking. So if you want to know how much of the money is because of increase in project items and the increased item, you have to separate that from a delay and a price increase, and to reflect the difference between my initial funding request, we will convert the money of the day to the same price when we sought the first funding. That allows for comparison. So the money we need to pay is based on money of the day. Mr. Eddie Ju, I'll give you an extra 4 minutes, so we'll take it as your second round. It's like the Shotton Central link. Can you pledge that you need to convert it back to a format where we can compare? And could you also provide target price or forecast price? Could you provide us with these figures? Could you promise that? We can provide these figures. It's included in the paper, but it's a fixed price. We can also indicate the money of the day price. So even if we approve the funding, you are still promising to disclose the information. So this will be a precedent, and we can now compare oranges to oranges and apples to apples. So you've solved that problem? So, Chairman, they have to submit it to us. Then we can sit down and talk about the figures. There is progress. Okay, Mr. Nathan Law? Well, the over budget, as with the Shotton Central link, there are unforeseen geological problems, and they provided us with some material that helps us understand that together, similar to the Shotton Central, that the link that the geological survey, there is a difference between forecast and actual reality. So whenever we examine these over budget cases, there are reasons for the contractors to make claims, and usually these are unforeseen circumstances, and we have to have grounds to pay this extra funding. So MTRCL made 40 drills, and they made and the distribution of this granite is not even, so this was unforeseeable, where they could not determine the rock clusters. So I want to ask a follow-up question. Based on this record, there were 6 out of 40 drills where they found these rock clusters. So the technical adjustment, could you do a better sampling to prevent these unforeseeable circumstances? Could you reduce the probabilities? That's the first question. MTRCL. Well, as in the PWSC and FC we mentioned, we will summarize our experience in these engineering projects. So for the new in our future arrangements, we will see how we can reduce the risk. Chairman, you had made 40 drills, is that in compliance with the requirements? Is that sufficient? According to the geotechnical services, we only need to do 16 drills, and in fact we made 18 drills, and based on the records we did 22 drills, so there's a total of 40. So we have exceeded the geotechnical requirements. So I'd like to add a note. There are some problems with the geological notes. The government has not pledged to review this. So once again, I urge the government to do more. Mr. Leung, go home. 5 minutes. Well, first of all, the core stones and the core stone clusters, you say that it would affect the it would affect the flood control. It's open sewer, it's visible. So could you tell us, initially, had you considered that if you don't do sufficient geotechnical surveys, what the outcome will be? That's an open sewer. That's an open nullah. MTRCL. As a matter of fact, we need to drill in the nullah. So in our initial survey, we cannot affect the flood control function of the nullah. The nullah is on average 22 meters wide, so we feel drilling on both sides can provide some of the data, and we cannot get a full picture when we drill. So when you make that decision, is it the contractor and then MTR management approves, and then is there an auditor that also looks at it? Do you have 3 levels of checks and balance? Well, the preliminary surveying, we have the design consultant. They will audit our geotechnical survey, and the consultant will draft a surveying plan. So who approves that? Is it MTR, Mr. Leung? The MTRCL, we have geotechnical engineers. They will make a reasonable arrangement. So what does the auditor say? Well, these plans have to be submitted to Housing Department and the Geotechnical Department. We did not receive any comments from them. So we can't ask for a refund because Housing Department and which other department? Geotechnical Department, they say it's okay. Well, I need to get the pro-establishment camp to listen in. This is money down the drain. I think so. Any response? Or do you want the government to respond? You have 3 layers of checks and balances. Do you need to retain me as well? I can help you survey. You sought 64 million funding. Why didn't you recruit me? Chairman. when we do drilling, there is a process. Well, you have 3 layers of checks and balances. The contractor, the consultant, they make a proposal, MTR okays it, and then our 2 departments approve. This is the outcome we have. You have to tell the truth. You're saying that with 3 levels of checks and balances, we still have to spend an extra 64 million. And then you say there are monsoon seasons, rainy season. So how long was it delayed because of the weather? Mr. Leung, you have to allow him time to respond. Chairman, the process I was referring to, the MTR needs registered geotechnical engineers to monitor the situation. The design consultant also has to analyze the drilling samples. If they feel it's not sufficient, they can do extra drilling. So the drill samples indicated the quality of the geology, but the actual site was more complex than what the drill samples indicated. This was something that was unforeseeable. So this extra cost is necessary. Ms. Tanya Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask regarding the construction fee. Since the last funding application, there is provision for price adjustments. It makes up some 40%. I'd like you to explain the difference. I see in Appendix 3 an explanation that the government has disclosed some information. But at the time, aside from that, how did you assess it? What did you consider? I also see Highways Department, the director is present. And in Public Works Subcommittee, we talked about drilling. And for the Central Kowloon Link, if I recall correctly, Highways said that they would have to do more drilling. They would have to take more drilling samples. So after the discussion on the MTRC project, will you update your guidelines? Because the guideline dates back to the 1980s. So after so many projects and in different areas, there might be some unique geological surveys. So when you update the information, it makes it easier for all projects, including government projects. I know that the projects may be very large scale, it's not easy, but since there have been technological advances and other information gathered, so would you consider in the short term updating the guidelines, the geological information? Thank you for the question. Regarding the geotechnical office, their geological guideline, in the previous PWSC meeting I had touched on that. We asked the Development Bureau and the Geotechnical Office on this update, and the response was they will make regular updates. The most recent update was in 2014, but they did not publish a new guideline. They issue geological technical updates. That's how they update their guideline. So the published date of the guideline dates back quite a while, but they have been updating regularly. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, regarding the provision for price adjustments, the increase in provision for price adjustments, I know that there's an assessment for cash flow, but I'd still like to know, you said that you would make reference to other projects. I'd like to understand the whole logic and the procedure. Could you explain it to me? Mr. Chan? Just now, I was saying that when we do project assessments, we make reference to similar past projects. We use that as a reference. But the past projects, their prices will be different from the future projects because of salaries and material costs. It changes. So usually they increase, the prices increase. So we have two components in our budget. We have a basic price assessment that's based on past projects or tendered projects, actual market prices. We have another component called provision for price adjustments. So let's say a project will run for 5 years, and how will price change over 5 years? If it goes up, we have to set aside some money to make up for that increase. So when you add the two together, that is the MOD price. And now FC is approving the latter, the MOD price. That is the actual money that we have to pay the contractor. That is what will be paid. So we have the provision for price adjustments.
Basically, for the projects reaching the FC, we have been using the same model and we have adopted the same way of calculation so as to forecast the price adjustments to be expected in the coming years. Yes, please switch on her mic. You would like to ask another question? Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask for what Mr. Pt2 has asked for so that we can learn more. Among the $64.5 million more to be paid, it is said that it has been found that the piling work had to go deeper. And then, to avoid further delay, the contractor adopted hanging falseworks, which were more expensive than traditional scaffoldings, so that modification works of the Nana could continue during the wet season. I think you should have anticipated that, right? It may rain any time and it will be wetter during the rainy season. It should have been a factor you would have taken into account. It is inexplicit. And then further down the paper, you talked about underground utilities more complicated than expected. You talk about a large number of underground public utilities, and you haven't anticipated that, and so the cost of the works has to be increased by $79.4 million. I would have expected you to ask for the drawings or the plans of the utilities prior to the commencement of works. If you have, then it means the plans are wrong and then they are to be blamed. Now, for the $39.4 million figure, I want to know what this sum will be reimbursed. Again, it's a matter of checking the checker. And then it seems that both the manager and the checker have mistaken. And then it is said that you have to pay $1.07.6 million in relation to the on-cost payable to the MTRCL. With the increased construction costs and extended construction period of the EPIW, an additional design and management cost of $29.1 million for the whole project is required. The MTRCL is one of the parties to be blamed. They have made a mistake, and yet you are asked to pay them more. Have I got it wrong? How can you convince me to approve the funding? I want to know whether you're confident that you can claim the $29.1 million involved. If the MTRCL is wrong, then how confident are you in getting back the money, 30% or 40%? Under Secretary, such questions have already been clearly and elaborately addressed at the Pt2 meeting. No. We asked you to drill the holes in the nullah. You said that you didn't want to affect the flood control function. You did so on either side of the nullah. And then the consultant, the MTRCL, said it could be done. And then the two officials who are here said that yes, it could be done. As to the drawings of the utilities underground, if they are not available, then you should have anticipated complexity. If you have got the drawings, then you must be in the wrong. I suspect that you don't mind them suppressing the bidding price and then come back later and treat you as an automatic teller machine. So it is obvious that they have committed a mistake. Now, Chair, I won't say any more. I just want them to explain about the three mistakes. Yes, please switch on his mic again. For this paper, for the FC meeting, I don't think there is any commercial secrets. So for the three parties attending that meeting, what has been said? Now, 3 points. First of all, the drill holes, the hanging force works so as to avoid the wet season. And then lastly, the utilities drawings. Did you ask for them? Have they been given to you? And then did you come to an assessment? Please give us the information. If you haven't got the information, then I will admit failure. Under Secretary, as I have said, Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Leung is repeating the questions. Well, I want to know if there is a paper. The questions were answered at Pt2 meetings in April. We have submitted papers to the Pt2 in relation to relevant members. The paper is Pt2 138/16-17/02. In that paper, we have given the details about the underground utilities. No, I am not asking for their paper. I want to get the paper involving the three parties. Can you provide such a paper? So checking the checker. Did you call a meeting? Now, you are asking us to give you the money, right? Mr. Chairman, can you give the floor to the MTRCL to give a reply to the three questions or what? Yes, maybe succinctly. Yes, MTRCL. Thank you, Chair. Well, for the nullah, it has to be widened. After it has been widened, we still want to keep the road. So we need to work on the road surface. The geological conditions affected us because we need to have the piles. And then for the drill holes, they were scattered. And between 2 points, we don't have the information to tell us what actually it looks like. And on this occasion, we have got unfavorable ground conditions. And then sometimes between 2 drill holes, we found boulders. And we had to go deeper and then that would have a bearing on us. At first, we thought we could complete the piling in the dry season, but we couldn't, so we had to go into the wet season. For the wet season, it means that we couldn't do much, and that's why we had to adopt the hanging forceworks. So the unfavorable ground conditions is a direct cause. Now, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong is asking for those papers. Would they be available? Sorry, speaker is off mic. Who will take this question? Member, can you be more specific? Because you just talk about papers in general. We have already submitted papers to the LegCo. Sorry, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong is off mic. Sorry, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong is off mic. It says that in order to prevent the impact on the anonymous flood control function, etc., etc. So, if somebody has raised this point, then it means that such papers, sir, such papers, Secretary, Undersecretary, Mr. Chairman, for such papers, perhaps we have to ask the relevant organizations who attended the meeting. We have to check with them whether there is a minutes. Sorry, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's mic is not on. We won't be spending too much money. We haven't got the money, and it is said that it cannot be discovered. Sorry, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's mic is not on. Please consider it and later on tell us whether it can be done. Tanya Chen, contingency. I don't know if the question has been answered. I think some money has already been paid. There were $20 million left, thinking that it was sufficient. So what about the $56 million involved? Do you have money as to in what areas have they spent the money on? MTRCL first. MTRCL. Mr. Chairman, for the $56 million, well, that's the amount of money we have reserved and earmarked as contingencies. And we have used the money to meet the additional requirements of expenditure. Therefore, we need to add to the sum. It is a circular reply. Of course, I can see it for myself. You have to make more payments, so you need more money. We want to know where has the money gone, and you say that it's been used for making payments. I want to know what have you been paying for. Can you give a more concrete reply? Yes, Director of Highways. Mr. Chairman, let me supplement. In our paper, we talked about $56 million. Please go to paragraph 14. From that paragraph, you can see that we have to incur a higher level of expenditure. We still have some contingencies with us which haven't been spent, and therefore we are setting aside $56 million so that the money can be used to offset the additional expenditure that we have mentioned. So at first we had $76 million, $56 million have been expended, so $20 million left. I won't say that 1 plus 1 equal to 4. That's in the advertisement. 76 minus 56, and we get 20. I can read it myself. Now it is said that Some of the contingencies, that is $76 million under the original APE, have been committed to cater for the additional costs arising from the above factors. So I just want to get the breakdown figures. Do you have the breakdown, Mr. Chairman? We don't have a breakdown. So we've set aside the money so that we can make up the shortfall, but for the rest, that's the subject matter of this supplementary provision request. Mr. Nathan Law, 3 minutes. I want to ask a question about the development model and the so-called profits. Now, this is an ownership model. The property rights on the podium will be given. What about the assessment of the value of the site? I think you haven't taken into account the railway development. The development right has been given to the MTRC, but we all know that once the rail line is commissioned, traffic improves, then the land value will go up. And yet in the government's paper, it says that with the awarding of the property rights to the MTRCL, all fluctuations and more market risks will be shouldered by the MTRCL, and the government won't have anything to do with it. So it seems that you are throwing a bomb to the MTRCL, but in fact you are giving it a golden goose, and it will lay gold eggs. You can't cheat us. You can't say that the MTRCL is going to bear huge risk. In fact, we know that with the extension of the rail network, the land value will go up. My question is more for the administration. When you signed such a contract, why did you assess the land value without taking into account the railway development? Why haven't you done so? It should not be above the funding gap. In the future, I think you should think about the needs of the public. The railway development is for the public. It is for the transport and traffic needs. Now, in the future, when the MTRCL makes profits up to a particular level, then the money in excess should be used to fill the funding gap. I think it's a fundamental question. That is the financing model for railway projects. It has got nothing to do with this paper. In the future, whether we are going to have the ownership model or in the case of SCL, a concession approach, I think at future meetings of the subcommittee on railway development, we can have another bite. And of course, you can raise this item. But I don't think it is directly related to this item because we aren't talking about the operation or construction of railway projects. I think you're about to end your term of office. I wish you all the best, but you are not answering my question. Are you going to re-examine it? I have already explained. I've said that in future, as to how we take forward our railway development projects, we will certainly make reference to the experience of the existing models, and there are two of them. One being the ownership approach. In other words, if there is a funding gap, then this will be the way to fill the funding gap. Sorry, speaker is off mic. How come that the value has been assessed without taking into account the railway development? Please provide a written reply. For such background information, certainly we can provide it. Dr. Edward Yeo, 5 minutes. It will be brief. I just want to ascertain whether the Wong Chuk Hang project is similar to the SCL project. That is, there was a provision for price adjustment, and I want to know whether there were some internal arrangements and there wasn't a contract term concerning provision for price adjustments. I would defer to the MTRCL. I think Mr. Nathan Law asked a similar question, and I've given a reply. Let me be brief in the answer. For 56TR, this is about infrastructural projects, and it's a matter of the target price contract. For such a target price contract, it means that the contractor gets reimbursement for what has been spent, and it is on the basis of MOD. We do have price adjustments, but then this cannot be reflected in the receipts or the invoices. All right, that has been clarified. Can you give additional information on your actual expenditure vis-a-vis the amount of money requested by the government? I want to know about the difference so that I can tell where the money under provision for price adjustments has gone. That is to which areas. Yes, the information can be provided. All right. According to your assessment, will some of the money be channeled to the meeting of the claims? Yes, we are talking about the actual expenditure. For claims, again, it is on a reimbursement basis. We can certainly provide the information to members. So it is possible. Yes, including the claims. Indeed, indeed. For the claims, can you elaborate? In this case, I want to know about the outstanding claims. Are there still outstanding claims, and have they all been covered in the supplementary provision you're asking for? So can we expect to cover all the expenditure to be involved in the claim submitted by the contractors?
Mr. Wong, for the main infrastructure, they are basically completed. In relation to claims, we have discussed with the contractor. Currently, the amount assessed or estimated is sufficient to meet all the claims. I think there will be another meeting. Well, there is one item. I am very concerned about the provision for price adjustment. You maybe can tell me where it has been where you can find the provision for price adjustments, say for example under claims, and I will be able to tell how much, say how many percent has gone under raw material, how many percent is under claims, and you adopt reimbursement. And would that also result in the price adjustment provision being scattered under different items? And usually we have this force majeure. How much has been taken up by the provision of price adjustment, and the extension of time directly affects the price adjustment provision. Can I have the information? We will go back to give you the information. Some of them has been used on the underground utilities being more complicated than expected, the change in design, and also under favorable ground condition. If you want me to work out the amount under raw material and labor, then it might be a bit more difficult. Perhaps we will need some more time to work that out. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, they have taken the 10% and they diddle us that it is not on the basis of reimbursement. You said that there is a rate of increase, and then you ask the quantity surveyor to work it out. Then you will know how much in addition you have to pay, and you have allocated 10% of it, and the unspent amount will go towards whatever force majeure, human error. And if you ask them to do it, it will be difficult because it doesn't work even on an accounting basis. Because if you do it this way, you will never know what you need to improve in the future. You ask us for money, but you have made an accounting error. I wonder whether any company will make such a fundamental mistake, an elementary mistake. You have set aside $1 million for contingency, and you did not use it up, and you will, you will use it on other things. You rob Peter to pay Paul. And I asked you, some contracts are fixed, whereas others have got flexibility. Can you give me a breakdown one by one? You have mixed up all the sums. I don't know what you expect legislators to do, just rubber stamp them. I ask you for the information where you have paid to the most, and you try to remedy the situation, but we are unable to find the information. How are we supposed to monitor you? I've never seen a case when the figures are so messy. Do you think that the same applies to the electrical secretariat? I still haven't got back my election expenditure from last year. Do you know that if we make a mistake of $2 in our election expenditure, we'll be asked by the ICAC to go talk to them? Please ask to speak again, Dr. Edward Yield. 4 minutes. I think there is a part, pay share, gain share. We asked for supplementary information. How much of it and what is the sum? Has been absorbed by the contractor under the cost overrun sharing basis. That means under the MTR contract, we don't have to pay as much for the cost overrun. Can you maybe just give me an answer orally? And then you set out the information in a paper so that you can help us gatekeep to keep the cost to a minimum. We have answered the question in the PWSC meeting. We have the pay share arrangement. The contractor has to be responsible for cost overrun up to a maximum. In relation to this project, 56 TR, the share they have to pay is about $20 million. The $20 million, is it reflected in claims or in the project cost, or where? It will be deducted from the actual project cost, so they will have to pay $20 million. So what is the mechanism for the pay share? Not when there is a claim? when the fees have exceeded the target price, and it has used up the, so from 0 to 20 million they have to be responsible. But you would not know. You would not know that that it has exceeded the original amount without actual measuring it. They will know, because when we pay the project expenditure, they have to give us documentation, so we know about the expenditure. And when it has exceeded the target price, then they will have to bear the share they should in out of the cost overrun. So the target price has already been set. How much in advance was it set? Yes, it could be set, but it is also subject to adjustment. Say, for example, under the contract, if we encounter unforeseen underground condition, then the contractor may make a reasonable claim. Yes, well, then in that case, the target price will be adjusted upwards. When the tender was submitted, then the target price was set. Then you did not give them that. Otherwise, after 2 years, then there will be price adjustment. There is no price adjustment in target price because it is on a reimbursement basis. And when it was paid on money of the day prices, we have already paid for the price adjustment. Ms. Tanya Chan, 2 minutes. If there are litigations, say you have to make compensations, does it count towards project cost or contingency? Who is to take the question? MTRCL or? So what is the usual approach? I would like to clarify the question first. You mean a litigation between the MTRCL and its contractor? Yes, mainly that. Because the amount involved in a claim can be huge. I see that there is only 20 million left in the contingency, so I wonder what it will be used for. So do we need to hear from the director? Just now the MTRCL touched on this. They said that, well, they have already discussed claims with contractors. They already have the figure, a ballpark figure. Perhaps the MTRCL can supplement. That means there won't be any future claims. In relation to 56 TR, we don't think there will be any chance of claims. I hope you will allow me to ask the question. Assuming there is litigation, where will the money come from? Well, I mean, where will the money be paid out of? Or is it just like, well, doing it through arbitration, you just settle? In the entrustment agreement with the government, well, if should there be claims with contractors, there are 2 approaches. First, to use to get our own management team to do it. If we need to use a third party, say a consultant, it will be paid out of project cost. But we would like to keep the project cost to a minimum. Perhaps you will need to ask to speak again. Dr. Edward Yield, 3 minutes. I have to continue with my question. Please explain with an example. Say, well, for location there needs to be concrete cementings, and there is a target price. And when it comes to actual work being done, it's more $20 million more, and there is an additional claim of 10 million. So 10 million is the target price, 20 million for additional costs, and also a claim of 10 million. So how much will you ask the contractor to pay under pay share? And how much will be paid out of contingency? How much out of price adjustment? Using Dr. Yu's example, if the target price is 10 million, everything unchanged, then if it doesn't exceed 10 million, then it's all well and good. However, if there are some objective factors, say shortage of labor, raw material prices increasing, and there is an additional cost of 2 million, then each will share 1 million. That is the paying share. However, if it's unforeseen conditions, say additional 2 ball piles, additional 2 million, then it doesn't come out of the contractor. It's additional expenditure. It's not a claim either, because target price is based on actual project expenditure. And there is also the contingency. The contingency is to pay for unforeseen expenditures, say the $2 million. When it's exhausted, then we have to apply for additional funding. Thank you. That means the contractor will pay 1 million paying share, and MTRCL will pay 2 million, and there is an additional amount for unforeseen conditions, so the MTRCL will have to pay additional $3 million. So where will it come out of? Well, it will come out of a contingency. So you will not use the provision of price adjustment. In target price contract, since the reimbursement basis is used, so price level, be it up or down, will be reflected in the actual project expenditure. Please continue. I'll treat it as your next round. We gave you an amount of money for an item. Its provision of price adjustment is a huge sum. So using the same example, would you use the price adjustment to pay for that? If not, then I would like to know, under what circumstance would you use the price adjustment provision? Mr. Wong from the MTRCL. At the time when the funding application was made, we worked out a sum. Under target price, it equals to a contingency. Is to cater for price level going up or down, reflected in money of the day prices. Well, back to that example then. Let me supplement using Dr. Yu's example. The MTRCL will pay additional $300, actually $3 million, and it covers 3 parts: the original amount, some is provision for price adjustment. The 3 million is the actual expenditure of the contractor, and it already reflects money of the day prices. If you turn the clock back to 3 years earlier, the price would not be as high. Using $3 million 3 years ago, you only needed 2.5 million, but today you have to pay 3 million because of increased in price level. The additional $500,000 will come from price adjustment provision. When the contractor has paid $3 million, they will not be able to differentiate how much came from price adjustment provision, and it would be included, and that lump sum is part of it, and we have already provided for that. So it's the original estimate plus provision for price adjustment. And for the actual amount paid, there are also two parts. It's just that we can't carve the two parts apart and tell which one is the fixed price, which one is the price adjustment provision, because the contractor will not tell us how they allocate the $3 million. Mr. Nathan Law. A follow-up to Dr. Yiu's question, if you can't differentiate that, then how do you know, well, from which pool of money it is paid out of? We're talking about an additional 40%, so inflation's 40%? Can you explain further why it's such a huge sum? I would like to clarify. When we apply for funding approval, we work out an estimate. We would like to get members to understand what is spent on, so we will show you a breakdown. But it's a sum allocated for use. When it's actually used, it will not be broken down like the breakdown in the paper we give you, because the allocation is subject to many different factors. Say different items, we use different contracts.
So we seek a block sum. I understand. So that gives rise to a problem. For example, we see the pedestrian bridge to Wangzhou, your final price is 90 million. So they could have taken a big sum in the increase in provision for price adjustments. It could be 100 million. And you don't have to break it down. So they can fill out the figure however they wish to describe it. Is that the case? The final payment, the MTR will have to use its management contract to verify the figures with its contractors, and that is the MOD price. So that is the sum paid out. So as we said, there are different components, and one of them includes the provision for price adjustments. We just can't give you the breakdown, but it does have that component. Dr. Yu Chongyin. So they have been very honest. They don't know where the money is spent, but logically it has to include that content. That is very clear. That is so I want to ask the Undersecretary, in the future when you make a funding application, could it be according to the reimbursable items? Because you're just saying that logically it has to include that, but we don't know where it has been spent. Can you improve on that, Chairman? So whether it is feasible, you cannot just look at it at one project. The question it will apply to all government funding. We need to study that with other bureau and departments to see whether it's feasible. So whether it is MTR, CL, or Highways Department, they explained that when we pay the bill, the figure reflects inflation and it is similar to wages. So that would reflect inflation. So how much was due to inflation? How much was due to inflation? You might not be able to identify that, but you know the money was spent on wages and cost of materials. Nathan Law, from Shanghai Central all the way up now, we see that the budget they drafted and the final outcome is different, and their explanation is that they cannot. It's hard for them to predict inflation and how much is due to inflation. It's hard for them to break down or analyze. So this is exactly the purpose of having an increase in provision for price adjustments. We need to be able to account for inflation. The items that we're paying for the subcontractor could be different from the funding application. It's hard for us to identify which project is problematic and where they spent more money. But if you are aware of a problem, and how do you follow up? The explanation you're saying is that you are just placing your trust in MTRCL and paying what they're asking for. If you want to understand the figures, if you want to audit the figures, first of all, MTRCL, first of all, the highways are aware of the expenditure, and the Director of Highways Department, being responsible for the public resources, they are also monitored by the Audit Commission. So all the monies are accountable. The monies can be traced. So the government does have a mechanism to follow the funds. It can track the funds. There will be invoices, and we have a very stringent audit control. So if you want to ask which component of provision for price adjustment is reflected in the invoice, as my colleague said, it is hard to follow one by one, but the figures can be audited. Mr. Edichu? Thank you, Chairman. The Undersecretary mentioned something very interesting. You now come to LegCo for extra funding, but we cannot audit how the money is spent. You're saying the Audit Commission, the MTR, and you yourself can follow the monies. So I want to ask, can LegCo request the Audit Commission to clarify your figures and then come back to the PAC for a clarification? Undersecretary? As an administrative branch, we cannot influence the audit department. Well, I'm asking you, if we request the audit department to audit your Southern Island line, and you will cooperate with them, and the audit department will come back to us, and then we can have a discussion. Do you think that is an extra measure for us to understand your funding application? Well, as I explained, the audit department, we should not interfere with the audit department. As to your different requests, I am sure you can make these requests, and how the audit department to respond, that would be up to them. Well, you've given us a roundabout answer, and ultimately if they deny our request, and I come back to the administrative branch and say, when you seek extra fund, when you make an extra funding application, can you help us, or can you give us an opportunity to understand the accounts rather than just giving a description that you think is appropriate? So if LegCo is very passive, I dare not say that you're juggling the numbers, but if your description has a shortfall with the actual situation, we just want an extra opportunity to audit your figures. Can we communicate? We keep saying that your figures are unreal. I'd like to defer to the Highways Department. The question was, how do we supervise MTRCL when they propose a project, and if they run into extra costs, they have to submit the relevant information. After examination, we will meet with them, we will clarify the details. If we feel there are problems, we will raise questions. So when auditing these figures, as the gatekeeper for projects, we will after answering that, you'll have to press the button again. Well, I can only respond that how I supervise MTRCL when they undertake these engineering projects. As I said, we can see very clearly their expenditures. Mr. Pt2? The Southern Island Line went through some discussions, but the core questions weren't made available to the public in my mind. So why do we find it so problematic is because they have ownership of the Southern Island Line, that is MTRCL. They undertake the construction costs and the extra overrun, and in return they get the property development rights. And initially the cost was, the estimate was 10 billion, but now in fact the development rights exceed that significantly. It's at least 30-40 billion. So through a ownership model, the MTRCL has made a lot of money. So now, coming back to the funding application, it is engineering products to help them attract more customers. So the government is now footing this bill, and it is now overrun to 1.2 billion. So 900 million to 1.2 billion, I feel it should not be paid by the public. The MTR should foot the bill. So set that aside. If you look at the breakdown, the MTR consultant, they want us to pay 20 million. How is that fair? The Southern Island Line, they are making money by the bucket on the Southern Island Line. I want to ask MTRCL, have you considered waiving that 20 million consultant fee? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Well, Mr. Pt2 had already expressed his view in the PWSC, but I want to speak on behalf of the MTRCL. The consultant fee we receive is our expenditure for management of this project, including our construction site management and salaries. So it is not a profit for the company. It is a salary and costs. So I would like Mr. Eddie Chu to understand the expenditure of this sum. Mr. Liang Guohong. We have a checker of the checker, and they they can't keep their eyes on the ball. So we need to know which hand is paying which other hand. We need to know where to step up our efforts and where we need to plug loopholes. So when there's a sleight of hand, it's hidden away from us. Well, the audit commission is appointed by the government to conduct investigation. We would like them to audit the figures. Mr. Edichi hasn't described the full picture. They had demolished Wangchukhang village. It was the oldest estate in Hong Kong. It was a conspiracy. Mr. Hui Jifeng. There has been a lot of discussion, and this extra funding application, if we refer to the document, the reasons are similar to Shatin Central link. It's unforeseen geological complications and complex underground wiring cables, and they are now seeking an extra 40%. And your document explains that gives similar reasons, complex underground cables. In your supplementary paper, C138 hyphen, your explanation is, of course, some underground cables, after excavation, they didn't match the records, and you say that there's nothing you can do about it, and engineering standards were used in the design, and you say that you tried to verify that by drilling, but they were affected by traffic, geological factors, and so on. So it's inevitable that there are constraints. So regarding the complex underground cables, this is the same question that I asked on the last occasion. Are you saying that these conditions are par for the course and inevitable, and there is it is nobody's error, and it's not the MTR, it's not the consultant, it's not the government's responsibility? Thank you, Chairman. We had answered this question in the PWSC in our information collection phase. We had asked all the public utilities, the government departments, the drainage service department, water supplies. We asked for all this underground cabling information. All we could do was include this information in our contract for the contractor. In Wangchukhang and Ocean Park, there are a lot of old existing underground facilities, and these might not be totally reflected in the records. So these were the unforeseen underground cabling, which added to the engineering complexity and costs. I want to follow up on this underground cabling. The property is the government. The government is also responsible for the underground cabling, and when the excavation permit was formulated in 2004, that was also the government policy. And the actual conditions were different from your records. Whose responsibility do you think it is? Mr. Hui's question has been described in the paper. There has been an explanation. like the director of highways. I'm not asking about this situation. I'm asking whose responsibility it is. Will you comment on responsibility? The director will explain. Well, we have to look at the provision of data. The public utilities company information, when they provide it to outsiders, it's voluntary. So when they provide this information to other institutions for use, there isn't any legislation requiring accuracy and so on. There are no requirements. So in this respect, they don't have a legal responsibility. Well, if you allow them to provide this information, we're talking about public utilities. So if they provide false or inaccurate information, there's no responsibility. Well, the arrangement now is if A needs to excavate the road, the site, they will ask other public utility companies for underground cable information. So the utilities companies, when they provide the information, it's provided voluntarily. There's no law requiring making a requirement on accuracy. It's also not provided through the government. So there's no law requiring that the public utility company information, how accurate it needs to be. Thank you, Chairman. Next, Mr. Junius Ho. Mr. Eddie Chu. Thank you, Chairman. If we look at 22nd of May 2017 Southern District Council meeting, though there were some superstructure works it was 9 million. So I want to ask, is the government waiting for the infrastructure funding to deal with this request? And another question is, why didn't they include it in this section and do that?
好正處嚇。多謝主席。原先我哋呢個項目
Director of Highways. At first, we have not anticipated the need for this work. However, the local people have asked for it, and after the relevant departments have examined the idea, it has been found that this could be done. That is a covered pavement, and therefore the administration will be funding the project. Mr. Chu, you are right to say that we intend to rely on the block vote to meet the expenditure. Thank you. Mr. Lathan No. A simple question. Can the administration assure us that this is going to be spent on inflation only? That is the $1.3 billion. Could you answer the question, Mr. Chen? This is only a forecast. I think the work has been completed. All the money will be spent on the project. As to the increase in provision for price adjustments, as I have said, it is difficult for us to separate the sum. Well, you are not honest. You asked for the money to be spent on A, and yet you actually spend it on B. Now you say that it is only an estimate. It is laughable because it is a matter of supplementary provision. I would have expected that all the work has been completed. Mr. Chen, we need to clarify one point. For the money that we are trying to get is the sum that we would need for the final payments. And it is the sum in MOD prices. we look at the cash flow forecast, and then we'll try to see what it will be like in September 2010. Please switch on Mr. Law's mic. This has been the case since the discussion of SCL. You ask us to give you money for A, and yet you actually spend it on B. This is serious. It is affecting our function in approving your proposals. Now, if you want us to give you the money for A, then do so, and directly. Don't try to do it under the disguise of getting money for B. Mr. Ted Hui, I want to pursue the question on unfavorable ground conditions, as well as the underground utilities more complicated than expected. Just now in your reply, you have said that there's no legal requirement to say that the plans that they submit must be accurate. According to such a logic, you can never get hold of the latest information and the most accurate information for the use by your engineers. You will become the biggest laughing stock, because this can easily become the excuse to say that there is cost overrun and you need more money. Is that the case? Director, for the case of underground utilities, the Development Bureau many years back informed the development panel the current arrangement is the result of the recommendation of a consultant after studying the matter. They have also sounded out the views of the stakeholders. We have got a e-platform, and they can volunteer such information. I think it is the best way to go about it. Of course, in the future, as to whether we can have a review and to find a better way to cope with the matter, I think probably it has to be taken up in details at the relevant panel. You think that voluntary provision of information at the year platform is the best way, but then it has resulted in the cost overrun. And you don't think that there is any legal loophole? Are you saying that? Chairman, it's not for me to judge whether it is the best way. But then back then, it was decided to adopt this approach. The consultant made this recommendation. It was discussed at the LegCo, and we all agree that this is a good way to do so. Now, even if your argument stands, you have said that if at all feasible, you'll have more drill holes to confirm, but then you have been constrained. In other words, technically, you could have verified once again the information, and then you'll be armed with more accurate information before you refer it to the engineers. Now, you are saying that you have encountered difficulties. Have you tell the stakeholders? Did you tell the stakeholders, and did you tell the LegCo? Have you ever tried to find a way to solve the problem? As to the details in taking forward the project, I would like to defer to the MTRCL. Well, we did drill the trial pits. There were 51 altogether. We did take the trial pits, 51 of them. There were such constraints, like the traffic. We couldn't have done it on the road, otherwise we would be obstructing the traffic. And then we have also made reference to the existing records, and we have got the information for 13 trial pits to check the accuracy of the alignment of the utilities. And after that, we incorporated the information in our design plan. Since it is still inadequate, so do you agree that more should have been done? As I have said, irrespective of the larger number of pits or holes, we are suffering from site constraint. Like at the junction, we can't do it. Now, 4 motions have been submitted under 37A. Whoever wants to do the same, please do so quickly. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. We understand that we can rely on different approaches like corporatization to enhance the transparency of the government. Now we ask for the figures and you say that you can't. Now we have seen that the government is changing. We want to sort of treat the government like a company and we're interested in your accounts. Now you are saying that no, that can't be done. I think you are trying to cheat on us. Now if you don't build a covered pavement, no one will be interested to go to the MTR station and take the MTR. Now the station has been built and now you find public money to build the covered pavement. So you're using public money to make sure that the MTR is attractive, or you have connection with the future housing developments that you're going to build and own. Ms. Chair. Thank you, Chairman. A lot of our time has been spent on the following topic. It seems that the government comes here to get money for A, but we actually spend it on B. I want to say that every time we come here to get funding, we would like to have it calculated in the money of the day prices. In our paper, we have tried to talk about the figures. Sometimes it is the MOD prices, sometimes it's the current prices. What we want to do is that we want to give you an idea as to the amount of money needed at current prices. But then a project may have many different breakdown items, and then they will emerge at different points in time. So we have to tell you how much money has been reserved, and we have to cope with the factor of inflation. Therefore, first of all, we will do the calculations according to the current price levels, and then we say that we need price adjustments taking into account the inflation. And then the sum to be applied for will be money of the day prices. Now today, if we want to make adjustments, if we want to get extra funding, then of course we have to revert the calculations. Now that we are in 2017, we want to tell you about the money needed at current prices. So we are sort of working back, and we are trying to tell you if it is fixed price in 2017, what would be the figure, etc. So we are working back in relation to money already spent. And how do we achieve that? We have been using the deflation-related indexes that the government has got to show you the workings. Well, I think you need to get an appointment with the couple of members who have been asking you questions repeatedly, so that everything can be reduced into writing. Time is up. Thank you.